अंग्रेज अपना लगान और न्यूज लॉन्ड्री अपना हफ्ता कभी नहीं छोड़ते. Welcome to another episode of Hafta. Thank you so much for your support. You supported our Delhi election coverage. You have supported our earlier NL Sena project. The Hindu Rashtra project is almost topped up. And in fact, you already have reporters who have started working on that one.
There's one story out
Okay.
yesterday. There are 3 in the pipeline. 3 video stories are ready, almost.
So you see, that is how our journalism is funded. You guys support an NL Sena project and we execute it without fear of favor because we do not take money from any corporations through advertising or sarkari ads. So we have a new NL Sena project up, which will be done jointly with the News Minute and Newslaundry. This is the QR code. Let me tell you about the project and you can contribute if you think it is worthy of your money and worthy of journalism, because democracy dies without journalism. This project we are calling the impunity of India's police. A few facts: a prisoner is killed in an encounter, another is tortured in custody, a case falls apart due to lax investigation. There's corruption, tampering evidence, casteism, threats, profiling, illegal surveillance, harassment, all recorded and reported on. An almost endless parade of abuse by the police, which is there to protect and serve us, apparently. When this defines policing in India, is it any wonder that there is so little faith in the police? From Tamil Nadu to Kerala, Maharashtra to Uttar Pradesh, police excesses take many forms. What unites them is the impunity under which these excesses occur. And I must underline, this is across states. So we're going to be covering states that are governed, we don't use the word ruled, by the BJP, the DMK, the Congress. We're going to, spread it out just to show you how policing in India works. So the News Laundry and the News Minutes, amazing investigation teams, will investigate these excesses and report, and we will see which are the highest instances of police brutality. Basant Kumar, Prateek Goyal, Maria Teresa Raju, Anisha Seth, Jahanvi, Haritha Manav, Kora Ibrahim, Nidarshana Raju and Jisha Surya will fan across the country to meticulously document this culture and how it impacts everyday Indians. This is the QR code. The link is in the show notes below. Do contribute to the Sena project because the police is the most obvious interface that general public like us has with the state. How well does this work, and is it serving you, or is it just there to bully the shit out of us? Contribute, keep journalism free, pay to keep news free. Thank you so much.
And incidentally, these states also report maximum police excesses. So
we're following the states that report maximum excesses. Now, as you can see, we don't have Manisha and Anand today. Manisha is going to be having a session in Bangalore. So those of you who are there, she will be putting this out on social media. She's speaking at a college. I don't know if the college allows everybody, but the college students can benefit of Manisha's experience. In the studio today, Shardool.
Hello.
Welcome. Good to have you back, Shardool.
Yep. But now I'm regular, I think.
Now you're regular, yes. Raman, Kirpal.
thank you.
And joining us from her home city, Chennai, is Jayashree.
Hello.
So Jayashree, let's get the headlines. And we have 2 very special guests. One is Nitin Pai, who is the co-founder and director of Takshashila Institution. We're going to be talking about DOGE and government spending. And also joining us later will be Shabbir Ahmed, who is senior news editor at News Minute, where we're going to be talking about this language battle that is happening from Jayashree State and the center.
Yes, so here are the top headlines for the week. As you said, the center and Tamil Nadu are engaged in a standoff over language, over alleged Hindi imposition in the southern state through the 3-language formula of the NEP. The education minister had said Tamil Nadu will not get over 2,000 crores in grant if the 3-language policy is not implemented. So the chief minister has now said the state is ready for a language war. It's been a heated first week of the Delhi Assembly session. A CAG report that was tabled in the Assembly revealed the government suffered a loss of over 2,000 crore due to the now scrapped liquor policy. Also, 21 of the AAP's 22 MLAs were suspended for allegedly disrupting the Lieutenant Governor's address. In news that I found quite shocking, around 1 billion Indians, or 2/3 of the country, do not have the income to spend on discretionary goods. This is according to a report by a venture capital firm called Indus Valley. So basically, India's consuming class comprises just 140 million people. That's 10% of the population.
And in fact, this is something that, I mean, now, of course, this investment fund has put it out through a report. But I mean, I've spoken to several senior executives at e-commerce companies. So they say, of course, when, you are going to raise funds from overseas, they say, oh, India is such a huge market, 1.4 billion. But actually, the e-commerce people who can actually afford to, have the capacity to, know how to, and for e-commerce to buy stuff on a Snapdeal or a Myntra, whatever it is between 50 to 70 million. It's not even 100 million.
Yeah.
So that is actually the size of the market. It's not 1.4 billion.
Right.
But
And it is that same size of people that is getting richer every year. That is your only consuming class. The poorer people are getting much poorer.
That is why we wonder why many multinational companies do not come to us.
Yeah, because it's
It's a limited footprint, and like the actual size of the population does not represent the spending threshold.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
A Delhi court on Tuesday sentenced former Congress MP Sajjan Kumar to life imprisonment. This is for murdering 2 men during the 1984 riots.
About time.
Yes.
In Pune, a 26-year-old woman was allegedly raped inside a public transport bus. The case sparked protest by the opposition, which accused the state government of failing to maintain law and order.
We are doing a big picture story on Pune. Pune being, the city which is, known all over, not just the country, the world. And many retired people, they come over there just to buy their houses, and they like to stay over there because of the weather or whatever. So we are just auditing the criminal graph of Pune.
I see.
How it is increasing. So this will also be one of the case studies, and Pratik is working on it.
Great.
Today is day 7 of an ongoing rescue operation in Telangana, where 8 workers have been trapped in a tunnel in Nagar Kurnool district. This is after a roof collapsed on February 22nd. And I just find this really sad because you find there are news reports like this all the time, and eventually news reports after the first 3 days, they start talking about bodies. It's just become a body retrieval exercise because they have had no contact with these 8 workers. Also, I think there were reports saying that the workers their families, most of whom are in Punjab and Jharkhand and so on, they weren't even informed by the company that the thing had happened. They saw it on television when reporters started calling them for news bites. And it's just extraordinarily callous. It's so sad. So,
True.
Right. In Manipur, representatives of the armed Meitei group Arambai Tengol met the governor and put forward conditions to surrender looted weapons. The group itself surrendered over 240 weapons, and 109 more were surrendered at different places in the state. The union government has appointed former RBI Governor Shaktikanta Das as Principal Secretary No. 2 to Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Days after India defeated Pakistan, the Champions Trophy match, the Maharashtra police arrested the parents of a minor boy who allegedly shouted anti-India slogans. Authorities then demolished his father's tin shed scrap shop. They then razed his uncle's shop. They did not serve notices before either.
So, I don't know how the Supreme Court's order is just being ignored by states.
And there's so many precedents that this is not allowed. Even in earlier cases, people were also set free. There is acquittal. There are acquittals. But still, they're doing it. It's complete wastage of the time.
Who cares who is shouting at the match time? Like, let them be.
But also the basis on which they picked up this child is awful, right? They said some VHP man was walking down the road. He said he overheard him shouting in the house. And on the basis of that, you register an FIR, you take away the boy, and then you raise the shop. That makes no sense.
You're not even free. Ultimately, what's the point? That you cannot speak freely inside your own house because somebody might hear outside.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. It's actually very so
fuck
dystopian.
Is going on?
And there's no, they'll make a big deal of someone's tweeted something, but this kind of stuff, which is a direct attack on personal liberties in a democracy, is just ignored in our country.
Absolutely.
It's shocking.
The EU and the UK have added more entities based in India to an updated sanctions list. This targets those who continue to aid Russia's war on Ukraine. Also, in a major diplomatic shift, the US has voted alongside Russia in seeking to block a UN General Assembly resolution by Ukraine that called stop hostilities.
Not just alongside Russia and North Korea.
Yes.
Correct.
Talk about the axis of evil realigning.
And we abstained.
We abstained.
Conservative leader Friedrich Merz is set to become the new Chancellor of Germany. Preliminary results show the alliance he leads has won 28% of votes.
And although the far-right AfD won almost 20%, he refused to take their support to form the government. So, yeah.
News from the US. The first cabinet meeting of the Trump administration was held this week. Elon Musk is the center of discussion as Trump backed him and his team at DOGE to slash government spending. DOGE is claiming it saved over $60 billion in American taxpayer money, but we can discuss this. Also, Trump announced a plan for a gold card visa. This will be priced at $5 million for foreign investors seeking permanent residency and ultimately American citizenship.
Nice.
And the Washington Post will no longer run views opposed to personal liberties and free markets on its opinion pages. Jeff Bezos announced this week. The editorial page editor, David Shipley, then resigned. And those
That's
are the
what
headlines.
happens when billionaires control media. So Newslaundry does not take ads from billionaires or from sarkars at a time when all news platforms, newspapers and digital were flooded with ads from the UP Sarkar. You saw we didn't have any. So do flash this QR code, use this QR code, pay to keep news free. We're an ad-free platform where the public pays, the public is served. And on cue, we have a guest. Hi, Nitin. Thank you for joining us. Appreciate it.
Hi, Abhinandan. Good to be on your show after such a long time.
Yeah, it's been a while. So we've already done a brief intro of you, but I will do the Aupcharik intro. Nitin Pai is co-founder and director of the Takshashila Institution, an independent think tank and school of public policy based in Bangalore. Many of you, I'm sure, have already heard of it. He's a regular columnist for The Mint. He previously spent more than a decade at the Singapore government as a policymaker in the technology sector. Have I got it all right, Nitin? And have I left anything out?
No, you've already climbed me on the Chane ki Jhaad.
Okay, so welcome. That's Shardool, Raman and Jayashree are with us.
Hello.
Hi, Nitin.
Hi.
So, Nitin, I'll just quickly shoot off a couple of questions and you can answer them at leisure in whatever order you like. We had discussed DOGE and government spending, and it so happened that I just finished a couple of weeks ago reading Ruchir Sharma's Where Capitalism Went Wrong. I think that's what it's called. I don't know whether you've read it. In that, he's looked at government spending by successive governments in the US, and he's also quoted some numbers from Europe. And of course, this myth of Reagan had said less government, even he had added to government spend. Everyone other than Clinton added, even Trump added in his last stint, although everyone claimed that they are going to reduce government. So clearly it was bloated. And I mean, you can tell me if, of course, Ruchir also has, I'm sure, got his data from somewhere. He has claimed in his book that this myth of Europe being the socialist oasis where the government spend is more as a percentage of GDP, it's actually US that's more. So if anyone should be accused of it, it should be US. So that is one aspect. And I'm quoting these numbers from the Economist article and NPR. US spends $7 trillion a year approximately. And Mr. Musk has claimed that he will save $1 trillion or $2 trillion. Apparently, 70% of that money is either social security or defense spending or pensions, so that cannot be touched. That leaves about 25 odd percent. Out of that, they've done a whole bunch of others. So effectively, he's playing with just 5 to 7%. So statistically, is it possible to cut 1 trillion? I don't know. But the world over, one thing is true, that government spending needs to be cut because it seems to be bloated. How it's done is, aesthetics, I think, are important as well. In the Indian context, is there anything you would like to add? And generally, how do you think this will realign world economies? Do you think, like today, in fact, while we're recording this, the market has crashed yet again. The markets are not finding any bottom. I don't know what the reason is. I don't know whether Nitin also tracks the markets. But we'd like your informed view, and it is an informed view, on how this realignment in the US, that contagion of let's audit government spends and get them down, how it will impact things around the world.
Yeah. Hey, that's tall order. See, I think first of all, let's just separate the Indian case from the US and Europe, right? They are very, 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 very different cases, right? And you can get into a huge amount of confusion when you sort of import American ideas at Indian levels of income and Indian levels of governance, right? It's just like you can't afford Nordic fashions at Indian levels of income, right? So there are very, very different things. I'll come to the difference later. But see, first of all, it's sort of ironic for me to be answering this because I believe in small government, right? I believe that the role of government should be minimal such that it enforces contracts, defends the country, ensures there's rule of law, and provides a level playing field for markets, right? That's basically what you would want government to do. Anything what government does over and above that is sort of, now I'm cutting it to India. You have cops going into bars and seeing how many musicians are playing and are they, using one plastic bag or two. These are not kind of things which governments ought to be doing. But here's the challenge with all those comparisons. I've read Ruchir's book. Here's the challenge with all those comparisons. Society as a whole has grown a whole lot more complex in the last 70 years, right? Since the time when US, for example, had small government, no income tax, before World War II. And then in the last 70 to 80 years, the world has become extremely complex, right? Imagine you have an instrument today called cryptocurrency. Now, you didn't have cryptocurrency, 70 years ago or 40 years ago. Now, cryptocurrency is not something which you want to leave wild into any economy, including a developed one like the United States. Now, you want to be able to regulate cryptocurrency. Now, the guy who was, regulating cash with the 500 rupee notes, $500 notes is not equipped to do cryptocurrency kind of work. Now, you need new people, right? The cash has not gone away, so you need the cash guy as well, right? So there is an addition of government work which happens. I've been a public servant in the Singapore government before.
So there's an inevitability to associate with technology. There will be more people needed for new things. So that will happen.
And with technology, with globalization, for example, governing a country with just one type of people, one color, one religion, one language, is very different from governing a country where there are 5 different types of people, 5 different languages, and so on, right? So diversity, complexity, all of that means that the size of government will increase, right? So that kind of comparing it and saying, oh, we have a big government, by itself, I don't think makes a lot of sense. Right? You have to see whether the government is achieving basic governance goals. Right? Is your traffic on the road? Do you have traffic jams? Do you have air traffic problems? Is your markets fairly governed and so on? So effectiveness is your first cut. Right? You don't appoint a state because the state is a low cost state. You can go on a low cost airline, but you don't go for a low cost. The first cut of it's like saying, this policeman, he just takes 500 rupees a month. Let's take him, right? The point is that the policeman do his job. Now, if you need to pay the guy 50,000 rupees to prevent crime from happening, you have to pay 50,000 rupees to the guy, right? Yeah. So it's not about cutting costs and having low cost government. Now, what's gone wrong with the DOGE thing is we've left all realms of reason, right? It is just a bunch of I've been an arrogant technology guy before, so I can sort of tell you this. An ignorant, arrogant technology guy would go in and say, "Look, here's this system. Looks like there are a lot of people here. Let me start sacking people, right? Or there's a lot of money being spent, and let me stop cutting, stop paying people, right? Or cutting the budgets or whatever." Now, what happens is most of these guys don't know what the hell they're doing. Right? They're punch drunk, arrogant on wealth, on some kind of technological power, the arrogance of knowledge, of having achieved extraordinary things in the tech industry. And then you're trying to say that, look, because I'm an extraordinary tech industry executive, I know everything about government. That is simply not true, right? Because it's not that people in government are in government because they're dumb people, right? Even the dumbest government is run by pretty smart people because it requires some amount of specialization to run government and to understand that. So what these DOGE guys have seemed to have done is they just don't understand this, right? And they're saying my non-understanding is a virtue, right? So now let me go and just...
I'm an outsider. Yeah. That's a good thing. Yeah.
It's like you walk into a hospital and say, hey, there are a lot of people in this hospital, so let me just cut off the power supply, right? Or let me just sack all the doctors, right? All the people and then we'll hire all the, because I can't tell which doctor is important or not. Let me sack all the doctors and then I'll figure out which are the doctors I need to rehire, right?
In fact, just a similar thing, Dr. Qureshi had said, the former chief election commissioner, he says of all the arguments, and he says one can have a conversation where there should be one nation, one election. I'm sure there could be pros and cons. But the one reason I'm rejecting right now is low cost. Your democracy should be robust. It should not be sasta and tikau democracy. So if that is the reason being given, I'm sorry. That reason I reject. Right.
Yeah, exactly. So it has to be effective first. Efficiency comes later, right? So what I'm really perturbed by these guys, and I'm very, very troubled by them, is that it's giving a bad name to all reasonable attempts to bring governments under control, right? Now, one reason you could see, you could ask the question, why is it that DOGE happened, right? The DOGE probably happened because the system was so complex and unreformable that the only way you could even do some kind of a reform on it is that you had to get these mad people to do crazy things, right? So it's almost like a revolution kind of thing. We just don't know. We can't do anything. No one allows us to make any change. So here's what we do. We're going to take a chainsaw.
So rather than a revolution of the proletariat, it's a revolution of the billionaires, basically.
A revolution of the guy with a chainsaw, billionaire or not, right? Now, it is true, right? Many governments have made it very hard to reform. There is hardly any government which says that next year, any government department says next year, I need a smaller budget. Okay, I used to be part of a government and I've actually done that. I said, look, I need a smaller budget next year. And people looked at me and said, are you crazy? Your seniority, your talent, your prospects are measured by how big a budget you control. Right? So nobody wants to cut budgets. Nobody wants to cut manpower and team size, etc. So it is true that governments have these problems, but the answer is not some kind of a completely moronic way to go about it, right? And I think people conflate truth and intelligence with power. Just because this guy is very powerful and rich, you believe that this guy has some inscrutable wisdom. He's doing there's this amazing Elon Musk logic going on here in terms of reform of government. It's really the story of the emperor who's naked, right? I mean, the guy is naked. He doesn't know what he's doing, right? And he's doing it out of arrogance. And you will find out the downsides of it soon enough. There's a XKCD meme. I don't know whether you guys have seen it. There's a lot of things piled up on each other, and then this small little, all modern digital infrastructure, it's all stacked up. And there's a small little part on which everything hinges. Right? And this is one guy sitting in Nebraska somewhere who's been maintaining it quietly. Right? Now, if you go and knock that guy off, the whole thing comes crumbling down. Many government systems are like that, right? And many government systems are like that for good reason, because they work 24/7. Upgrading them is hard. So instead of doing lock, stock, and barrel, you sort of keep layering, things on top, and then finally you have a very complex system, right? If the question is, should we reform and simplify these systems? Definitely yes.
But is there a way of going about it?
Yeah, this is not the way to go.
Also, stepping on each other's toes. For example, Elon Musk had to walk back. Of course, the cabinet meeting was kind of embarrassing, where Trump said, doesn't even have a problem with Elon being here. If you do, we'll get rid of you. It's just humiliating for your cabinet to say that. And like when he sent out that email, I think Kash Patel's department, FBI, said it's optional. You don't have to respond to it. Like, stepping. So there's a lot of walking back, putting out wrong data. I think the New York Times has a piece they had said they've already saved 100 billion. It's close to 18 billion, etc. So, I mean, if all those issues are there, I want to come back to you on, I was a little taken aback by the numbers that Ruchir quoted, but I'll just come back to you on that. But on this smaller government, I know here we have a wide spectrum of political ideologies. Much of the social media says some are communist, some say I'm a capitalist. So my position is depending on what you're talking about. Shardool is a free market believer.
I don't know what I am.
More than others, but
yes.
Yeah. So, just on this small government, I think it's very difficult to defend the kind of amount of departments and everyone keeps adding to it. Just want to go around the panel to see what's your take on it?
So I have a detailed take on it. And while Nitin was speaking, I was noting down what I'm supposed to say. So this thing popped into my head. No system which is meant to be fairly working for citizens can't not be complex.
Sure.
Because people inherently are. And the government agencies and departments, their mandate is not meant to run fiscally efficient manner. Their mandate is to run fairly and be accountable and be transparent.
Sure.
Like when people talk about US, like we are discussing DOGE here, right? The way that system is designed, how states run, states have an equal mandate compared to the federal level. Some are just like in India, like some are in state list, some are in concurrent list, some are in state list. Now, a guy like Nitin said, a random person sitting in Nebraska has the equal right, or let's say Wyoming, way more remote, right? That you'll hardly find people for miles. They have equal right to those services which are provided by the government.
So it may not be profitable to provide it
Yes.
there as it is in New York.
Government's mandate is not to be profitable or be fiscally efficient all the time. I'll come to that also. Their mandate is to provide what they promise to provide transparently, efficiently, and that system is comparatively run better than India. This is why it has, swelled to this size. The other reason is the way they conduct and enact their policies. USA is fiercely independent on individual level, which means the constitution, the values they run on, give the
Personal
mandate
liberty,
the state
primary.
that they have to cater to this, even if it seems fiscally ludicrous. One other point is if US government has to cut their fiscal data, they can easily cut on defense, but that's not how they conduct their policies. They can easily stop, for instance, giving weapons to Saudi Arabia, but they have to make a sale. Right now, Donald Trump, one thing I want to mention, I am so ashamed to say, and this is such an embarrassing for autistic people. Elon Musk is painting us all in a bad light. Now, look at what he said while he was standing, I think a couple of weeks ago in Oval Office. That yes, I may make 16, 20 statements. Some of them will be incorrect. That's not how governments are supposed to run. Every word has to be checked and rechecked.
And then put out the...
Yes. And you may say this is for a capitalist, for a company, that's not the most efficient way to run. But government is not a company. Now, I'll give you an example in India also. We have a very bad Prathmik Chikitsalaya, basic medical centers in villages. You are supposed to have them even if you get one random patient in a week or so. This is how it's supposed to be done. And DOGE, hormonal teenagers are, yes, of course, according to Elon Musk, hormonal teenagers are the best judge of government efficiency. I mean, there are 18 years old, 19-year-olds, early 20-year-old boys, and they have already put out bad data. And the last thing you need is people who do not have experiences in dealing with these complex matters, dwelling into personal data. And there was one minor things to keep coming up, that there was this guy which was fired and then rehired because he had put out a tweet or a post that racism against Indians should be, normalized. So he was fired, then rehired. And funny thing is, J.D. Vance is married to an Indian. He has Indian children. So this government, like you said, is
Right. Raman sir, what's your take?
I think any government, whether it is socialist or the capitalist, if they want to bring in some changes, they should, I think the changes will be better and will reap more benefits if you bring them first at the policy level. Not, with the knee-jerk responses like, what has happened, with this government. It seems like even a businessman, if he wants to gain more, I think first should have his policies, he should set his policies right. And then he should, take the decision. But here, the decisions have come first and the policy has taken a backseat. So you very clearly see a businessman wants to bring in rich people. So 43.5 crore you have, just come and get the gold.
Right. I don't see the cost-benefit analysis for an Indian, but yeah.
So US aid, the money which is just going out for some social sector or whatever, 90% cut. So I save my money. Sure. But there is no policy decision as such has taken. Indians or maybe some other students who are excelling in technology, please, just asking the multinational companies, hire them so that the talent don't goes out of the... if you just look at the decisions have come first and the policy
the impact
has completely taken a back.
The cost-benefit analysis hasn't happened in any sensible way.
So I think it's not just capitalist or socialist. Any country who wants to bring in changes for better, I think should look at the policies.
I remembered one thing when Sir mentioned US aid. That Elon Musk has stopped the US aid program for Africa, in South Africa. Now, this is so ironical. The richest man in the world is taking from the poorest, most disadvantaged people.
In fact, the BBC report on that woman who shows up for
Yes.
AIDS medication, and it's a very sad report. I saw that report. But before we come back to Nitin, let's go the furthest color of crimson on this panel, Jayashree.
Yeah, I have a strong issue with the idea of small government. I have two things to say. The first is on small government, which is, I think, small government, I feel, is a talking point that's brought up whenever people say they don't want the government to step in and stop corporations from doing things that they do, which would be worker rights, would be customers, the environment, the public, wage suppression, health and safety, all the millions of evils. But they're like, no, we believe the corporation must be left alone to do whatever it wants. So that is one. Two, there is obviously wasted, bloated spending in government. But also, I'm equally sure that DOGE is not targeting that wasteful spending. Instead, it's cutting crucial things like disease monitoring that affects the poor or those who live on welfare. It's the actual waste, the biggest waste of all, the military, which if you didn't fund a genocide, you would have that much more money. But no, that is not being touched. And my thing is that Musk is an idiot. There is no genuine desire to be more efficient. It's like what Nitin said. These are just people who think they can do whatever they want, and they're walking and they're like, oh my God, we'll fire 2 million people. But based on what? There is no actual thought process in this. He just wants to be the big guy who's making a lot of money in the process. I think Wired had this story yesterday about how, so they've appointed a DOGE staffer to each department, and the guy who's appointed to the Department of Housing, he's the CEO of this huge property company. Then the guy they've appointed to the Treasury, he has millions of contracts with the Treasury through his company. And you're telling me that we're supposed to believe that none of this is going to leak into the way that they are operating.
No, I
makes
mean,
no sense.
What you said, let's start with even Musk, like the conflict of interest. When the White House press secretary was asked that many of the things that he's going to be looking at, there's a conflict of interest because his companies are interested parties. So she says, yes, we're aware of that. And wherever he feels there's a conflict of interest, he will recuse himself. So that itself is a conflict of interest.
Correct. And that is supposed to make sense. See, but the thing is that I think for a lot of people, and I think there was a poll on this recently, is that autocracy is very seductive, right? Like you want someone who's, okay, you can have checks and balances, which is really boring, or you can have someone who's really effective. Like he's moving in, holding a chainsaw, literally, he's going to break things. And in the short term, people see them as very effective, right? Like you think, especially if you're sort of politically aligned with them, you love the idea of someone taking swift action, especially when you're worried about immigrants, you're worried about spending too much on welfare, you're worried about woke ideology. And he's sort of dismantling each of these, but in the stupidest way possible. I think they sent that email to federal employees saying 2 million of you can, they give you the option of a buyout, but I don't think the US economy can actually afford to pay that if anybody will claim it. So they're just talking through their hat, like it makes no sense. So also, yes, it is full of lies and muck. They're saying they saved $55 billion of spending.
Yeah, that
but
of
then
course.
The itemized thing, they only came up with 8 billion. Then they said we've blocked this ICE contract on diversity and it cost 8 billion, but actually it didn't. It was 8 million. It's like nothing is making any sense, but also no one is expecting it to make sense. It's just...
No, they also had taken credit for some cuts that had been done before they came in.
Yeah.
And also, how does a contract work? I can't just say I am ending a contract and you're saying, yeah, but now I'm not going to pay for the work that I've already commissioned and I've already approved. When your government terminates a contract from convenience, I assume you're still obligated to pay for work completed. But they're like, no, it's gone out the window, so we'll never pay it. You can't do that. It doesn't make sense.
So Nitin, to come back to you, on the numbers, briefly, if you can tell me, I was really surprised that I think it was pre-World War II, the US spending as a percentage of GDP, government spending was, I think, 4% or so. It went up to 8-10%. Then COVID, it hit 20%. And apparently post-COVID, that became normal. So every year, so let's just stick to that, which is, ridiculous from the US point of view. But just want to ask you the political implication. And is there a reason why there has been this pendulum swing the other way? And do you think it'll swing now back? Because even rational, reasonable, small government advocates will be looked at, suspiciously because of what DOGE is doing. Now, I just want to quote this story. It's on NPR. Tyson Foods shut a meat processing plant in Perry, Iowa. It shut it down and laid off all 1,200 workers. And that town has a population of 8,000. So the economy of the town got decimated.
Yep.
And Tyson went and hired, all the who were migrants who were in tents, who had been housed in New York, for lower prices from there. So, I mean, if you just look at it, we are privileged. This will not bother me or you. But if I am a worker and I'm saying, hello, I'm an American citizen, they're shutting down this factory here, and Tyson Foods is hiring people from that migrant camp. And of course, Fox will go to town with it, that, they are taking your jobs. Now, of course, there are some nuances there. They had offered people in Perry to, if they want to move to Connecticut or wherever they're moving the plant, etc., etc. But on the face of it, this is a real problem. Big government is a real problem. Is it that the so-called, progressive or liberal side has pretended it doesn't exist, and therefore it's been taken over by the nutters, which will actually do more damage to that cause than good? And finally, the numbers in Ruchir's book, is it that much that US is more quote unquote socialist than Europe if you just go by government percentage of GDP spending?
Yeah. I think, first of all, we are not in the realm of discussing Ruchir's book and DOGE. Okay, they are two different things. Ruchir's book is about sensible thinking about government side.
Right.
This is just some complete nonsense, right? So, see, first of all, very quickly on this Ruchir point, it's not socialism is not about government's expenditure, but what that expenditure does. Right? If you intervene too much into the lives of people and businesses, even with small amounts of money, it's still socialism, right? So.
Right.
It's not that. But let's come to what you're saying about the Trump thing. Why why is this popular among certain segments? I think the narrative was not so much about government spending a lot of money on social welfare, etc. That appealed to a small number of people. Or, for example, government is doing over-regulation of the tech industry, etc. That probably appealed to a small number of people in Silicon Valley. But if you look at the masses, I think the concern was that the government is getting into all sorts of fancy liberal progressive causes which they don't necessarily agree with, right? Short form of that is woke, three-letter word is DEI. But, the idea that the government is, the sort of champion of all these left progressive causes got in the minds of the ordinary people and said, this is not exactly what I want my government to do, right? Now, when you think like that, which party are you going to vote for? Which politician are you going to vote for? Right? The only guy you can vote for is Trump, right? And then Trump wins, and similar things are happening around the world, right? A right of center voter has no choice because the left has totally alienated that person, right? So now when Trump comes to power, now the reason why I think they're doing DOGE is not just about efficiency. The ideological reason is to create a government full of people who will play according to the tunes Trump calls, right? The previous Trump administration, they had a problem all the way from the top down to the people, that you had government officials who were behaving like government officials and saying we are non-partisan, public servants. Our allegiance is to the Constitution, and we'll act according to what the Constitution says, right? So if there were orders which were unconstitutional or unethical, they would do yes minister kind of things to him, right? They sort of delay, diffuse, up until the very last. The January 6th thing, there were people who were trying to stop unconstitutional action. I think what the Trump, the ideological side wants is a government service all the way from the judiciary down to people in the armed forces, police, etc., who are loyal to Trump and the ideology that Trump stands for, right? So, which I don't think necessarily means that, this guy wants to become a fascist dictator for life or whatever. But it means that if he were to make a decision which says, let's close down USAID, right? Everybody falls in line. If he says, let's go and invade Greenland, right? Everybody falls in line. So I think that's the technocratic ideological reason why they're doing this. Because more than sacking people, the DOGE process creates fear, uncertainty, doubt in the minds of rank and file civil servants, right? And people want to protect their jobs, right? They're not going to go and become martyrs. I mean, there have been very brave people in the US government who've resigned rather than do unconstitutional things. But most rank and file people are not, they didn't sign up to be martyrs or heroes, right? They just want a job, and they want to do the job as best as they can. And here's a sort of hammer which is coming towards you. And what you would do is you would do whatever is necessary to duck that hammer, right? If it means answering Trump's email, Musk's email saying, what did you do last week? No harm in you responding, because at least now Musk thinks that you are a guy who, who's going to align with him. Because if you don't respond, the signal is that, look, you're taking Musk on.
Right. So, And the pendulum swinging, I hear you, because it's like people held their nose and voted Trump. Many reasonable people held their nose and voted Trump purely because of the issues that Nitin is talking about. And I get that. Because I think that is another mistake that sometimes people make, that anyone who votes one way is a fascist or is communal. People it's a spectrum.
No, Abhinandan, it's like saying,
it's complicated why people
you
vote.
be quiet because you're privileged.
Right.
Don't speak because you're privileged. I mean, you're not going to sit quietly, right?
Sure.
You're going to say, look, the guy doesn't even want me to speak.
Yeah.
So what do I do? I'll vote for Trump.
It's complicated, and on the other hand, Trump, because of this, is getting away with such insanity with that video that he posted, Trump Gaza. And then I don't know whether you saw the video exchange between the Maine governor and Trump, where he said that anyone who pursues these DEI policies will not get any federal funding. And he asked her, this lady, what's her name, the Maine governor, Janet Mills. And he said, he's such an obnoxious man.
Is the Maine here, the governor of Maine? Well, are you not going to comply with it?
I'm complying with state and federal laws.
We are the federal law. Well, you better do it. You better do it, because you're not going to get any federal funding at all if you don't. And by the way, your population, even though it's somewhat liberal, although I did very well there, your population doesn't want men playing in women's sports. So you better comply, because otherwise you're not getting any federal funding.
See you in court.
Every state, good, I'll see you in court. I look forward to that. That should be a real easy one.
And then he was just so nasty, but I mean, good on her to push back. But now that's what's happening, that I will only release funding if you listen to what I say. And his vice president has actually, in a speech, said we will defy court rulings. Any stay order on any of their rules, they said we should defy it. So it is going to become a mess. And I don't know, do you think that is why the markets are going crazy, because no one knows what the hell is happening, or that's separate?
Yeah, I think so, because the markets would be, I don't know how crazy they're going, but if I were an economic actor today, I would be worried about two things, right? I'd be worried about the prospects of an internal turmoil in the United States, which is the safest place to keep your asset, right? I mean, US dollars, treasury bonds are ultimately your safest assets in the world. So if the place where you keep your safest assets is going to have some kind of a turmoil, which is part political, part economic, then you would worry about it, right? So the base starts shaking. The second is, nobody quite knows what these effects of these tariffs are going to be, right? If and when they are levied. And, he says he's going to do reciprocal tariffs on everybody. And there will be retaliatory tariffs. So there are no, it's a dynamic thing, right? Because some people have modeled what will happen to India and said, only about 3% of our exports will decline. And 0.5% of GDP growth will be affected if Trump goes ahead and puts, tariffs on us, right? That's a very static, if nothing else changes kind of thing. But if everything else around you is changing, you just can't even estimate where things are going, right? So I think the turmoil reflects this sort of uncertainty, and people are trying to do whatever they can to grapple with this uncertainty, right? So that's why you see turmoil in markets around the world.
So the incidentally, EU chief von der Leyen met Jayashree yesterday, and I got caught in that traffic jam. It's in the papers today. Apparently, she was given prime minister level security or movement.
I thought the fact that you were caught in a traffic jam came out in the papers today. I mean,
no. I was going for that event, and I was like, why is there a gridlock? And today in the paper I saw, because outside the external affairs, I guess.
She went to Rajghat.
And also she went to meet Jayashree, and apparently the Delhi traffic police was not aware that she has to get PM level, whatever movement, this thing. Because the rule here is now that either PM or president or heads of state, there's a complete blockade. So I guess there may have been confusion as EU chief. Is she head of state or is she not head of state? So apparently that's why last minute they had caused that jam. But following this, and this is, I just wanted to weigh in, and then we will let you go. Even EU now has said that, dude, the tariffs that India imposes, of course, they've said it nicely. They've been very polite about it. But even they want to reevaluate the tariffs that India imposes on EU goods and services. Do you think Trump has set off a domino effect where every country says, we've just let it be for so long. Maybe we should relook at it, and how much of this would be a loss to India, or can we potentially gain from it?
EU has no right to speak about tariffs, man. Come on. They have this, the latest one, which is called what? Carbon-based adjustment mechanisms or whatever. So they're saying, look, we can't, our tariff is actually low, but if you're producing things which are not environmentally friendly, then there are additional charges that you pay, we levy. So it's, I mean, EU, in a way, the EU-US fight is, they're made for each other, right? It's about time they started doing this, because both of these guys have been sitting on a high horse for too long, reading out lectures on liberal economics and small states and, free trade to the rest of the world, international law to the rest of the world. But the way they practice is always shabby, right? So now each one thief is calling the other thief's bluff, So let's see what that goes. But I think we have no business taking lectures from the EU. If the EU was such a paragon of virtue, it wouldn't be in the kind of economic doldrums that it is in right now. Right? They're being.
So you think this is just rhetoric? No one will relook at the tariffs between India and EU.
They'll be forced to. But what I'm saying is that this whole conversation about tariffs and realignment of tariffs is no longer in that old free trade. Let's get to free trade, right? Reduce tariffs so that we get to a multilateral free trade kind of scenario. That was the ideal situation, and everybody was trying to reduce tariffs to get there. But now that's not the game, right? Free trade is not the game. People are saying, look, he's going to impose tariffs, so what do I do, right? So now I'm going to retaliate by putting, X amount of tariffs. But if the EU does that to the US, can it do it without affecting us, right? And therefore, we will impose some other kind of tariffs or rules on something else. So that's what I mean by being it's an uncertain and complex scenario. Nobody knows how this
is going to turn out. Well, we live in uncertain times. Thank you so much, Nitin, for joining us. Appreciate your time. Have a great day.
I just wanted to say something on your show before I go.
Yes.
Can I say it?
Of course, please.
मुझसे हो तो अभिनंदन जी से ऐसे हो वरना ना हो.
Thank you, Nitin.
I wanted to say this for a long time, boss, and now I said it.
Thank you so much. But before we let you go, as is our tradition, we always ask our guests to suggest a book, an article, a film that could enrich the lives of our listeners. It need not be to do with your subject. It could be, I don't know, Sholay, but something that you think was a good spend of time that you would like to recommend.
See, as an author of a book, I should recommend my own.
Absolutely.
So I would do that. But I think if I have to recommend something to people in India, I would recommend V.P. Menon's book called The Integration of Indian States. And I think a lot of people, and maybe also Granville Austin's Making of an Indian Constitution, right? V.P. Menon, these both books were written, 40 plus years ago. And V.P. Menon talks about how India was created, right? All these princely states around, how they were forged together, the promises that the Union of India made to these princes and later reneged on, and the consequences of that, right? And Granville Austin's book on how the Indian Constitution came into being, right? We have a complex constitution because we are a complex society. So all the fancy ideas that let's have a constitution as small as the United States, let's create those are all fanciful ideas which are oblivious to the reality that we live in. And I think people who are listening to your show, people who are younger than you and I, definitely need to read about how India was created and the Republic of India came into being.
Right. And you can also pick up Nitin's book. The links for all are in the show notes below. Nitin, you want to just tell us what your book is about?
Oh, my book is, okay. The Nitopadesh is a book of, it's called Moral Tales for Good Citizens. So it's a book of fables about policy science, about economics, about morality. There are a lot of puzzles in there. There are hidden jokes and so on. So yeah, pick it up if you're interested in these kind of things.
Thanks, Nitin. Have a great day. Bye.
See you guys.
Bye.
Bye.
What Nitin said, I wish Nitin was here. So this left thing, DEI, I'm generally on nobody's side, but and I've noticed that Manisha had talked about this, I think, a couple of weeks ago. So about the colonial wars and all, white people have reaped what they extracted from rest of the world for centuries. And now they are, because of tech, because the world has moved on, because the values they have been espousing for how many years now, since World War II, they are being asked to share it in a bit fair manner. Who has forgotten the military campaigns of USA in Southern America, right? The continent, in West Asia, which they call Middle East, and how Vietnam was it was almost 50 years ago. not even 100 years. And what they're doing right now, look what Trump is doing. What Trump is doing, what he has already done, always done in his life. He is acting as a thug, as a mafia boss.
Yeah.
He used to do it in real estate.
And he does it unapologetically. Even his manner is such.
Like, can you imagine? He's saying, Gaza, that give me the land, I'll make flats and sell them. He is that. He bankrupted a casino. He's an orange buffoon. About Elon Musk, which I wanted to mention. One, Elon Musk has always acquired businesses which were innovative. He has not innovated himself. Two, his current businesses are built on government grants and government NASA innovations. This is all just PR. And one, people might say this is a family podcast, but like how far up his head is up his own ass is that he was, like, I think 2 or 3 months ago, there is a game, and I know this because I'm into gaming. Path of Exile 2.
He hired someone to play for him to make it look good.
No,
That's pathetic.
I'll tell you what. This game is very intensive, very difficult, and he was not just saying that I'm good at it. He was saying I am one of the top 10 people in the world.
Right.
Like, you require only sleeping and shitting, and you have to do it all day, every day for months to become in top 10. The people never leave their homes who are good at this because it's a difficult type of game. It's an action strategy game. He hired people, and then,
he was caught.
When he was live streaming, he was caught because he didn't know. He banned a Twitch streamer. I mean, like,
I read about that.
Fucking...
What a bully. He banned that guy because he called him out
How
on this.
thin-skinned you are. That guy was Elon's fan.
Can I just bring up a couple of things? One is, I think I have 3 things. One, I feel like this is not a family podcast, so we are safe. 2, I read
Depends on whose family.
I think I read one interesting outcome of all this DOGE action is that there is a secret impact on the media, which is that DOGE cancelled subscriptions worth like $8.5 million to Politico. They cancelled subscriptions worth $2 million to Bloomberg. Okay, Bloomberg can easily afford it, but that's one of the things it does. And 2, also, I mean, my third thing is that we keep saying that, they are unapologetically shameful and, thugs or whatever, but I don't think this is as exceptional as many people. I mean, yes, it's awful. It's going to get much worse, but things are already pretty shit. I think billionaires were already hand in glove with the American state. They already controlled aspects of government. America is a country of oligarchs. It's just that now it is very naked. It is very open. There is an oligarch sitting in the White House. I think it's more of the same thing when you talk about Jeff Bezos and Washington Post. Everyone is like, oh my God, Jeff Bezos is openly saying these things. But do you actually think it was not the case already? Like, do you think his fingerprints were not all over the operations of a newspaper? Also, the Washington Post has always toed the line when it comes to what the American government wants and what the American state says. And you see it exactly in how it has reported on Israel and on the genocide. This is what the American liberal media does. It is manufacturing consent. Now they're just saying you're manufacturing it for me, not for somebody else. So, dissenting voices on an op-ed page might give you the sort of shine of respectability. But at the end of the day, this is just more of corporates and governments controlling what you are reading. So,
Right. I'd just like to remind everybody before we move on to the next subject about our new Sena project, the Newslaundry News Minute project, where we're going to have at least 7 reporters reporting from at least 5 states, if not more, on police excesses, what defines policing in India, what are the kind of violations of human rights and plain and simple law they do, why is it so brazen, and how it impacts our lives. I think it's an extremely important story that needs your support. It should not be supported by government ads, Sarkari government ads, because then how are we going to do justice of actually investigating that government that gives us those Sarkari ads or billionaires? And secondly, a Fight to Breathe campaign, which is going to be through the year. Here is a QR code for that. You can file RTIs. You can tell us what is the AQI in your area. We need to fix this problem. It's not an NCR problem. Don't let legacy media fool you. It is no longer even a North Indian problem. It has gone all the way to Bombay. And it is also extending to Bangalore, and it hasn't touched Chennai yet. But unless we fix it, all of India will be terrible AQI.
No, but Chennai AQI is relatively better than Delhi. But Chennai AQI is nowhere close to what like the WHO says is healthy air. We're all just breathing shitty air, but we're okay with it because we're like, yeah, but Delhi is worse.
We should not be okay with it. So here's a QR code. Fight to Breathe campaign. Get involved. It is the completely non-partisan campaign. Doesn't matter what your political affiliation, it is impacting you, it is impacting your children. So no matter where you stand on the political spectrum, we will hold everybody accountable. All the states that are in this area, there are different state governments, the center, let's hold them to account. On that note, I would like to move on to the next subject, which is this whole language war that is brewing. And we have, luckily, multiple language speakers in this little panel of ours.
I hope you're not counting yourself as someone who speaks Tamil. That's the main question.
எனக்கு தமிழ் தெரியாது. எங்க பா போ தெரியுமா?
My God, the man is fluent.
My mother would be proud. Finally, my son has learned his mother tongue. But,
Of all the sentences to say, though.
Yeah. But we have joining us from Chennai, I'm guessing, Shabbir?
Yeah.
Yes. So Shabbir is senior news editor at the News Minute. Do check out his show, by the way. We are part of the same team who are going to bring you ad-free, non-sponsored news. So do support us. Buy the joint Newslaundry News Minute subscription. So, Jayashree, why don't you lay the context before we get into this discussion on what is this battle? And in fact, one very effective, I think Stalin had done that tweet that Hindi has
all
swallowed
the languages.
All the languages swallowed, Maithili, Kumauni, etc., etc. And that is why the pushback. And then we'll just get into that conversation, the nuances, etc., etc. Yes, Jayashree, yours.
Okay, so the context is the central government said recently that it is withholding over 2,100 crore rupees in funds, which is due to Tamil Nadu. This is under the Samagra Shiksha scheme because they're saying Tamil Nadu is refusing to join the PM Shri initiative. Now, the thing is, Tamil Nadu is very keen to join this initiative, but it opposes the accompanying mandate, which is that it must implement the national education policy. Now, it has multiple issues with the national education policy, which it has spoken about for a while, but key amongst it is that the national education policy says you must adopt a 3-language formula in schools. So that would be English, Tamil, +1. And Tamil Nadu has adopted a 2-language policy from the 60s. Tamil Nadu is the only state, I think, in India that has not adopted the 3-language policy.
Yes.
Now, the thing is, the NEP says students and the state can choose the 3 languages they would learn as long as 2 of the 3 languages are native to India. It does not mandate that you have to teach Hindi. But Tamil Nadu is saying this is a smoke screen. It's a backdoor policy to implement Hindi, and I will explain why. One, because you do have limited resources to teach other languages outside of Hindi. 2, the government already does give funding to support the appointment of Hindi teachers in non-Hindi states. 3, there has been no effort by the center to teach regional languages in schools like the Kendriya Vidyalayas, which come under the central government. There are 0 instances of schools in, I don't know, like Uttar Pradesh that teach Tamil or Punjabi amongst their other languages. Instead, if you look at states that have 3-language policies, 32 of them teach Hindi. I think about 15 or 16 of them teach Sanskrit. And honestly, you guys in North Indian states should be upset that this 3rd language that you're being taught is Sanskrit, which has a fundamentally no value whatsoever. So now what the central government is saying is that Tamil Nadu is sort of stabbing itself in the back. They're saying, look, it's really useful for Tamil students are being shafted by not knowing Hindi. If they ever worked in an MNC or whatever in some other state, knowing Hindi would be useful. But the thing is, Tamil Nadu already outperforms on metrics like enrollment ratio in schools. Yep. There's lower dropout rates.
But you guys don't want to be more like Uttar Pradesh and Bihar? Shame on you.
And there is no data to actually show how Tamil students are allegedly suffering by not knowing Hindi. That is my entire thing. These are random plot points that people are bringing up, that there is some Tamil guy somewhere in some MNC sitting and being sidelined by his co-workers because he can't speak Hindi. I don't know if this is actually like a thing. Also, I mean, look, when migrant workers from Uttar Pradesh and Bengal and whatever come to Tamil Nadu and come to Kerala, they start speaking in Tamil because you have to. You're not given a choice. The same thing happens if a Tamil migrant goes somewhere else. It is this sort of middle class that has the opportunity to say, well, I choose to learn this language or I don't choose to learn this language. There is nothing to suggest this 3rd language must be taught in schools. So I don't understand why you have to waste very limited teaching resources and classrooms on a 3rd subject that is of no benefit. And this is completely separate from the issue that Tamil Nadu has always had about what it sees as Hindi imposition, which I feel Shabbir could also accept. But yeah, in my opinion, this is a very deluded concept. But this is the context.
Okay, and this entire allegation of Stalin that, or not allegation, I mean, it has been stated by the center, by I think Minister Pradhan, that unless they comply, they will not get access to some of the federal funds.
And how can a central minister cannot have the power to withhold funds over this? I mean, the three language policy is not in the constitution. It's not mandated by law. It is just policy. And
Yeah, everything will have to go to the Supreme Court. I mean, Supreme Court should only run
Yeah.
the country. The level of crises that are coming up. But on this, I mean, at some point, we should have a longer LTA on this because I think it's an interesting subject, and we should have an LTA that has a Bengali. I would like to say what a Bengali has to say because these Bengalis will. I remember when I used to make ad films in the early 2000s to mid 2000s, when ad agencies were still a thing. Now ad agencies are redundant. That time they used to have huge budgets because ads were made 1 crore, 2 crore budgets. Every creative director of every ad agency was either a Basu or a Sen or a Day, and so were the other copywriters. So if a producer like me went and sat in the meeting would start in English and midway it would be Bengali. And the producers who were mostly Punjabi in Delhi would be looking at each other and they'd look at you as if you understood. And because you wanted business, none of you had the fucking guts to say, dude, we are not bloody Bengalis. Why are you talking in Bengali in this meeting? So I'm surprised Bengal and Centre haven't clashed because they are the most aggressive with their language. How do they sit out on this debate? But with that completely useless input to this discussion,
no, but
Shabbir-
can I point out that I do exactly the same thing half the time in our meetings, because at some point everyone is talking to each other in Hindi, and now even I've been here for 6.5 years, okay, and still even now people are like, but you really can't speak. We thought you can understand a bit, and I'm like, no, man,
Who says
I'm not
that?
pretending. Like it's difficult.
Vignesh, the CEO of News Minute, is in town. We had a few meetings, and again midway, he's of course such a polite, gentle Bangalorean. He'll smile through, and then once you finished, he says, "I didn't really understand what you said." Then I have to.
Are you saying I'm not polite and gentle like Vignesh? I'm super polite.
Dude. Okay, you may have been once upon a time, but after having spent enough time in Newslaundry, I doubt it. But Shabbir, your take on this entire, language battle, is it only we see this come up, Hindi versus Tamil? Are all other states sitting this out? Do they not have a stake in this? Or is it not politically valuable to bring this up in, let's say, Karnataka or a Kerala or a Bengal?
See, I think Karnataka also has some problem with NEP. At the same time, Kerala also has issues with NEP. Like, they don't want to completely say that we will not accept NEP in toto. They're saying, okay, we are ready to accept certain portions of the NEP. But the demand by the central government is that you have to accept national education policy in its entirety. So that is where the problem is. So the problem that the Tamil Nadu government has with NEP is, one, it's a uniform national policy on education, and education being in the concurrent list. The states were not even, discussed before forming a national education policy. They were not consulted. Their inputs were not even, taken into consideration. So these are all basic issues. The real issues here are very basic. And that is something that the central government should have looked into before rolling out the NEP. Like Jayashree said, that it's not, mandatory. It's not something which is there in the constitution. It's a recommendation. Whether you accept the recommendation or not is a choice that has to be given to the state government. As far as language is concerned, the BJP government knows that it's an emotive issue, it's a sensitive issue. But despite that, the minister's statement was arrogant, and that is one of the reasons why this entire issue flared up once again. Like you said, in Bengal, I think it's Partha Chatterjee who has a small group of people, and they have been protesting about the language issue in West Bengal. And then there are some groups in Kerala, some groups in Karnataka. These are all very small groups. But as far as Tamil Nadu is concerned, Tamil Nadu's language is one of the most important component of Tamil Nadu politics. So it's intertwined. And anything that has to do with language, immediately there'll be protests on the streets of Chennai or on the streets of Tamil Nadu. The BJP will have to, go on a back foot because there is no other option here. Even the state BJP says that you cannot impose Hindi. That's the official position of the state BJP. The state BJP, though they support the 3-language policy, though they say that okay, why not Tamil students learn an additional language so that it will be good for their career and all that, but they are against Hindi imposition. So the whole point here is that when you touch language, it flares up. And Dharmendra Pradhan, I don't know what he was thinking when he made that statement at the Kasi Sangamam. The entire, the entire ecosystem of the DMK, including the government, they were out on the streets. They latched up to this issue. They latched on to this issue. And now this issue has become one of the most, key issues in Tamil Nadu. So much so that Stalin has released a statement today asking his party workers to fight for Tamil language, one. And two, he has also taken up the issue of delimitation. So Tamil language has become like a struggle for their lifeline, and delimitation has become the struggle for the rights of Tamil Nadu. So that's how the DMK is setting a narrative here. So the point here is that BJP wants to actually control everything.
Delimitation is the best sort of comparison for this, because Amit Shah was being very disingenuous when he said yesterday that southern seats will not lose states to delimitation, because that is not the point. Tamil Nadu may have 39 seats now, it may go up to 41 or whatever, but Uttar Pradesh will go from 80 something to over 120. That is the issue. So similarly, when they're saying, well, you don't have to implement Hindi as the third language, it can be any language at all, but your entire system is geared that logistically it will make more sense for Hindi to be taught. And therein lies the issue, and it shouldn't have been brought up. So also they could just de-link this PM Shri thing from NEP and funds entirely. Like, there is really no need to have tied it together, but he has tied it together. And
I think the reasons are obvious, but Raman sir, before I come to you, just a little anecdote. I'm on this WhatsApp group which has some very amongst the most privileged people in our country. Many of them are predictably not in India, but weigh in on everything that's happening in India. They've been abroad for so long. This discussion was playing out in that group. And one of these very wealthy bankers from the United States pipes up, what is wrong with you guys who are opposing this? You should be proud that you learn the most ancient language in the world, Sanskrit. Why are you studying Tamil? I was like, dude, Tamil is, if not more ancient,
It is.
at least as ancient as Sanskrit, and it is in the Guinness Book of World Records even today, acknowledged across the world, the most ancient language still in use.
Yes.
In the world, not just in India. So before you weigh in, at least this much you should know about Tamil. Even a fake Tamilian like me knows that much. And those of you who would like to say, that like Vivek Agnihotri, that it was not mythology, it was history. When it was Shivratri a few days ago, when Bholenath bajawed his damru, from one side, Tamil came out, and from the other side, Sanskrit came out. Of course, no one. That's the myth.
That's a mythological tale.
As per Vivek, that's history. It's not mythology. So one sound that was Tamil, the other side was Sanskrit. But people said that sounds good. We'll use it to speak. And the Sanskrit said we'll take it in +2 because you can get 100%. Like I took it. I learned Sanskrit for 5 years, sir.
I learned Sanskrit for about 8 years.
I do not remember Jack. I wish I had learned Urdu. I could have, not had to go to my mother to translate Ghalib each time. I could have learned French. I could have impressed girls. I could have learned Spanish. I could have sung La Vida Ota, Lota, whatever the hell, instead of sounding like a buffoon. But bloody, I have learned nothing. See the beauty. I only bloody Punjabi who just every now and then comes up with some Punjabi Yo-Yo Honey Singh song because I at least know the lyrics.
I learned Sanskrit because I went to CBSE school, so we didn't learn Tamil, which is my greatest shame. And I learned Sanskrit because it's a scoring subject. And the worst thing is that my school is really into Sanskrit. So I can sing Happy Birthday to You in Sanskrit because that's really important.
Wow.
I can also sing Old MacDonald Has a Farm, which also serves me really well 35
In
years
Sanskrit?
later. Yeah, because my school was like, yeah, you can do it. So.
We know what today's Hafta song will be. You
Absolutely
have been warned.
not.
You have been warned.
Absolutely not. But it's like, so it has no utility whatsoever. But I did score.
Okay.
So, yeah.
But
No, I tried learning Hindi in school, but it didn't happen. Like, for some reason, learning Hindi has never been so important. Even like what Jayashree said, like if you want to survive in North India.
Yeah, because
You
in the
have to
south
learn
there
Hindi,
is,
that's all.
I completely get it. But Raman sir, you weigh on this NEP. Is this a battle worth fighting for anyone, or is it all about identity politics for votes?
Okay, even before NEP, when it comes to the teaching languages in school, I did my schooling in 70s, right? I was in a government school, so English comes in the 6th level. So you get English, Hindi, and you have to take another language. Now it is just by default you have to take Sanskrit because there are no other teachers.
Yeah.
There's no other language being taught in your school. But earlier the government approach was, I mean, of course they used to promote Hindi, but it was I think the Congress mostly ruled in the first 60 years, and the Congress and I think they felt that this language development will take its own course. They did not impose the way the present government is imposing it on the South. If you see the language policy, right from if say the 3 language formula in the northern in the schools existing in northern India, again it is absolutely by default you're getting either Sanskrit. You're not
because
you're
so
not
many
getting any.
resources
No. I mean only in Tamil run school in Delhi. You get Tamil to study. In Telugu school, Telugu. In Harikishan Public School, you will learn Punjabi.
Gurmukhi.
Gurmukhi. Or maybe Urdu, I think. Maybe I don't know.
In madrasa.
In madrasas.
Madrasas, yes.
I mean, although Urdu is also one of the options for the student. I mean, I was just saying, at least on AIR, there is a Sanskrit news bulletin which is very interesting to listen to. There is an Urdu news bulletin, which I also, listen to, and a lot of it I find fascinating, the words that I use. And of course, there's an English news bulletin. The one thing that they have in common, all of them, and I'm not joking, I think I had asked one intern to monitor it over a week. All of them start off with Aaj Shri Narendra Modi.
Yes.
Every bulletin starts with that.
Yes,
Because every day while coming to office, I listen to that AIR. I was, damn it, not day 1, not day 2. Every single day, those are the first 3 words. But yes, our other linguist here.
Well, failed linguist.
I mean, let's be honest. You are one of the few who is as fluent in English as in Hindi. It is a rare combination. So you should be proud of it.
Yeah, and it was self-taught. So I want to speak on education policy as someone who has a learning disability, the academics were destroyed by our school system. So, but the point is, I want to defend my mother tongue a bit. No language is inferior or superior.
Sorry, before when you said you had a learning disability through autism, what is the nature of disability that occurs?
It's not autism. I have dysgraphia, which also
okay.
The Hindi idiom chor akele nahi aata, bhai bhatijon ko saath lata. So dysgraphia, I know the shit, but if you want me to write it on paper with a limited time,
you not communicate. Oh, got it. Understood.
Yeah.
Fine.
So that's why I could never finish the exams in the limited time. It takes too much effort to write on paper.
Right.
When I found keyboards, then it became better. The life became better. Anyway, so no language is inferior or superior. That debate is moot because every language, compels you, once you start thinking in it, compels you to think in a different way. You start to absorb its values and its literature.
I mean, could kind of agree with you, but if I wanted to serenade you, I would probably do it in Urdu. If I want to abuse you, I'd do it in Punjabi.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying all languages are equal. That
I'm not saying equal. I never said equal.
Utility.
The languages...
They're optimized for certain things.
Languages have their own characteristics, their own literature. And each language compels you to think in a different way because there is a cultural aspect to every language, including Sanskrit. You can read a lot of ancient books without the interpretation of the translator because every translator puts something in it.
Sure.
Right. Now, the problem with this 3 language policy to me is not everybody is one, very good in learning languages. 2, they don't need to, like Jayashree said. They keep it as an elective. And the other part is absolutely right that the union government, since independence or at least since 60s, have been spending money for, the Hindi Prachar Vibhag basically, to spread Hindi. Now, last year, I think this government assigned 50 crores. And
And that's only for Hindi.
Yes, for Hindi. And they have spent nearly 622 crores. I was just perusing through documents because we had to discuss this. 622 crores for Sanskrit. Why not for other languages? Like, if you want to be equitable, just give equal money to all languages. Let people learn what they want and whoever wants to learn. Why burden students with learning a language where they don't want to or need to?
Which ties us to the earlier discussion. Should the government even have an outlet for this? Is my question.
This government has created lot more social conflict, by taking advantage of our diversity.
Right.
I mean, if you see the commonal,
But I'm
now
just
the
wondering whether
language-
this has any political, positive outcomes. Is there a positive outcome, or like, sir, you were discussing with me upstairs? There is a cultural project which we had always said. There is no economic. Mr. Modi has no economic project. It is a cultural project. And now he said it out and out openly.
Yes.
The economic project comes second. Cultural project comes first. But is there any political traction in this? What do you think, since you're from a Hindi-speaking state? Is there political traction in your view? Of course, there's no data, statistics, but just from your lived experience, you think this is something people will back it, this is something we'll vote on?
So, from the crowd, in the crowd I grew up in, like RSS crowd, through and through, this is a very minuscule issue. But nobody cares. People do care, right? Everybody holds some sort of inherent
But
love.
not enough for influence.
There are always better issues. And other thing I wanted to say is, in a country diverse like India, you cannot preach a policy. And I was going...
Or language policy.
Any policy. We cannot centralize. Like a child growing up in... I imagined it why Tamil Nadu is saying. So I imagined myself not in a city like Chennai, in a small... Like the school I grew up in. You sit on a patta. You don't have much money. You go into government school and now you need to learn a language. The third one, let's say, hypothetically, Tamil Nadu accepts it. Now you need to learn a language. Now, which language would you choose? Now, there are many central government jobs, especially like the tribal teaching one, Eklavya Vidyalaya. Knowing Hindi is compulsory. So
automatically there's an incentive pushing you
So
there.
there is an inherent bias.
So there's a nudge. Okay. So
there's the language in their case, RSS case, and even for BJP as an arm of RSS, it has a cultural connotation. So again, the cultural...
Hindi, Hindu, Hindustan.
Culturally, they want to unite the entire... So Hindi has more cultural connotation. And second aspect is, politically, it definitely benefits. There is a data that the central government is in the center because of their votes from
the Hindi belt.
From the Hindi belt.
Right. Although I'm not sure a language is the reason for that. I think it's, my guess is, of course, I don't know. But yes, you're right. It consolidates. I'm not sure it consolidates because of
North-South divide.
Advocacy for Hindi. But yeah, Shabbir, is it a political issue that has resonance there? And is that, across the South or not really?
It is a political issue because, Jansang's slogan was Hindi, Hindu, Hindutva, Hindustan. That trajectory is still there. They have not given up on that, agenda. So here, while, defending the three-language policy, look at what Union Minister L. Murugan says. That if you want to cross Tamil Nadu border and if somebody abuses you, you need to know Hindi to respond. So this was his clarification.
My kind of guy. My vote goes to you, bro.
No, didn't some other BJP leader say, one woman, she said that if you're being assaulted by a man, you should be able to tell him, please step back or something.
Because usually only Hindi speaking when assault. Is that a logic? What is the logic of that?
Maybe that is an offensive statement. But
I'm offended as a Hindi speaker.
Yeah.
So that was a statement made by BJP leader Alisha Abdullah. Then there was another BJP leader who said that if you even want some more food, or if you want to buy pani puri, bhaiya do pani puri de do. You need to know Hindi. To even ask for food, you need to know Hindi. These are the kind of statements that are made by these BJP leaders here. So I think the entire project, though it may be political, but it will not succeed in Tamil Nadu. because the BJP has completely misunderstood. They like Professor Srinivasan, who's a vice president of the BJP, he says that, the reason why DMK or other political parties in Tamil Nadu are opposing, the people of Tamil Nadu to learn Hindi is because they will understand Prime Minister Narendra Modi's speech.
What?
And then they will start voting for the BJP. So this is one of the reasons why they don't want people of Tamil Nadu to learn learn Hindi.
God, man.
So these are the kind of statements that are there. But there is one thing that is very clear, that BJP is unable to connect with the people of Tamil Nadu. And that they feel is because of the language barrier. But what they don't understand is Tamil Nadu has a history. There has been anti-Hindi agitations from 1937 at different points in time. And in 1968, Tamil Nadu adopted a two-language policy. There ends the matter. Even if you go, even AIADMK was in BJP's alliance in NDA. When the NEP came, they refused to accept the three-language policy. They said no, we will not implement three-language policy. A resolution was adopted on the floor of the House saying we will stick to two-language policy. So that's the kind of opposition. But still, the BJP wants to play with fire. But in this case, the BJP wants to control. The BJP wants to say that if you want money, if you want funds, then please accept this.
My guess is completely unconstitutional, and like everything else will have to be decided by the Supreme Court, from governors passing bills to whether Delhi is controlled by LG to CM. Every other week there is a new constitutional crisis. I don't see how you can tie this funds to you have to agree to our language policy. But unfortunately, that's where we are. Let Jayashree have the last word on this before we wind up this week's Hafta.
No, I don't have much else to add, except that I do. You had mentioned Stalin's tweet, I think, that he put up yesterday, where he said Hindi has swallowed so many Indian languages, and he named Maithili, Bhojpuri, Kurmali, whatever. But it is, it makes for a great tweet, but also it is a very good point, right? Because you go north of Vindhyas, you're like, yeah, that is Hindi-speaking states, but you are not.
It wasn't
Hindi-speaking states.
Correct.
Uttar Pradesh was always Hindi, but even then, the sort of Hindi diverged from state to state, and also there are so many other regional languages, and the implication that Hindi means the extermination of a local language is true.
Right.
And in Tamil Nadu, it has very little currency because you're saying it will give you some kind of utility that no one can actually define. So it doesn't make any sense. And you did ask about are other states also getting angry. I think just this week, Telangana and Punjab made it compulsory for schools in their states, respectively. You have to teach Telugu, you have to teach Punjabi. Because, I've always wondered, how is this not a bigger issue, maybe in the East or whatever? But the thing is that it was, in Tamil Nadu, it's an exceptional case because they did mandate it in the 60s and no other state did that. So it's also why there's that push.
I think there is a case to, make Punjabi compulsory purely because and I remember my mother was laughing about it. My niece got married last week. I had gone, when I'd gone 3 days. They're hardcore Tams. Tam marrying Tam, and that's it. But the music and the Sangeet was Punjabi. You go any music. So, and when they're singing along, they're singing gibberish. So just for the reason that at least you sing along correctly, Punjabi can be made compulsory from an early age to all people across the country, and if not the world, because even German nightclubs are playing Punjabi
Great
music.
plan.
Yes.
Yes, but that's my thing. So it's not that it's not like we're sitting on some sanctimonious high horse and saying Tamil is the greatest language in the world. We are the cradle of civilization. That's why we won't learn another language. It is that there is so much precedent of how Hindi has taken over other local regional languages, and there is just no need for it to happen.
Also, more importantly, like Shabbir said, there is a political. It is not just a benign pursuit of let's expand our linguistic, knowledge or intellectual awareness, consuming different literature. For example, I'm always, whenever, and I'm asked to speak so often on what is Indian media. So my first 2 lines always are, I can tell you about Hindi media and English media. I cannot tell you about Indian media.
Yeah.
Because when I speak to Marathi speakers, some of the, commentary on caste is phenomenal in Marathi, but I'm not fucking aware of it, man, because I cannot read Marathi. Most of the news consumption in the southern state is in that language. So I cannot tell you about Indian media. But yes, I can tell you about English media. So that kind of, fragmentation is there, which would, if one said that, learn about X, learn about Y, just makes us more aware. Good case. kind of difficult in one lifetime, the number of languages. But I think one thing is very transparent in this government's case. It is not a pursuit of broadening our intellectual horizons. Clearly, that cannot be the case when their ministers say the kind of things that they do, and Swami Ramdev is curing homosexuality with a cabinet minister sitting next to him. I mean, the buffoonery is number one. So there is no pursuit of any intellectual broadening of horizons. You were saying
3 quick points. One, so even originally UP was not a Hindi. So Hindi was a state policy after independence. So you had major languages, Awadhi, you still know Bhojpuri and Braj Bhasha. Urdu is the language of UP. Of course, Urdu was born in UP. So these were UP languages.
Oh, was it? I didn't know that.
Yes.
It was born. Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
The second point I wanted to make was that Mr. Modi and this government spend their life, criticizing Gandhi family and emergency, especially, and they're right. But education used to be a state list policy, and it was Indira Gandhi in 42nd Amendment which brought into concurrent one. They never fix it. All union governments, they've never fixed it. And third, last point, politicians like these are the ones who give bad name to Hindi. Like the language in itself is fine. All languages are good. Like you can learn something new. But this is why the discourse becomes so poisonous and toxic on social media. Because
And also they don't know, especially when Atul had done that wonderful tippani on that, when they were insisting that everyone should know Vande Mataram, and they asked the BJP spokesman to sing it.
Yes.
And he said, whatever, Bhusmani,
that was...
That he did not even know. Even I know it, and I even know the meaning.
Yes.
But yes, so let Shabbir have the last word before he gives us his recommendation for the week and says goodbye.
So, like I said, it's political. Before, I think, imposition of Hindi has been an issue in Tamil Nadu for a very long time. But no government has used all its institutions to impose Hindi like the BJP is doing.
Right.
And that is where the problem is. And particularly when they want to do it in education, that's where the entire opposition is. And I think this will continue. And this will also become an election issue. The DMK is clearly using this for the 2026 election. They're setting a narrative. They're setting an agenda. The BJP does not have a comeback. The BJP will have to defend. And all other political parties, they cannot go against the DMK, particularly on these issues. Because except BJP, all the other political parties are on one side. They don't oppose Hindi. They oppose imposition of Hindi. So that's a clarity that, with all these political parties are approaching this issue.
Right. Thanks, Shabbir. Before we say goodbye, please give us a recommendation that would enrich the lives of our listeners. And of course, you can also watch Shabbir's show. You can plug that as well.
Okay. So I have a recommendation. This is one article that has appeared on The Wire. It's about the Delhi election. It's written by Akash Bhattacharya. It's about how a social coalition of the marginalized can have kept the BJP out of Delhi. It's about Delhi elections, how the India Alliance failed to, come up with a, stitch a social coalition. And another suggestion that I want to make is do watch Pooja's Let Me Explain this week on the News Minute. It's about the anti-Hindi agitation, the history of anti-Hindi agitation in Tamil Nadu, why language is political, why it is important, and why, every time when BJP does something in Tamil Nadu, particularly with Tamil language, why it flares up politically.
So thanks, Shabbir. Look forward to having you in our studio sometime. But until then, virtually on the screen. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye, Shabbir.
Bye, Shabbir.
On that note, let's get the emails and your feedback, which we find very valuable. You can mail us at podcasts@newslaundry.com. I repeat, podcasts@newslaundry.com. We only entertain the criticism, critique, feedback, suggestions of subscribers. So if you're not a subscriber, you can leave your abuse on my Twitter timeline or in the comment section in YouTube below. Or you can just click on the link in the show notes. As a subscriber, a window will open. You can give us your feedback. I see this week some of you subscribers have been very clever, like that one president that was set by, what was his name? Who sent 2 mails to 150 words is the limit. So, Comrade Shepherd.
autistic person.
Yes, the autistic gentleman. Anish Rao has sent us 1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
9.
6,
It's 9
7, 8, 9. The combined word count is 1,143 words. Anish, you have not just breached the word count, you have taken a chainsaw to the word count. You have done a dodge to the word count. So this mail, we will read your first one. The rest will be...
No. But Anish has also kindly sent a chat GPT condensed version of all 9 emails.
So then...
Which is... And he said, please read that out loud. The other stuff we have to read and internalize ourselves.
We'll do that ourselves. But so let's start with the first. I'll read the first couple. Then Jayashree can take over. Anonymous says, consumption of appropriate news media has become all the more important in today's age. While organizations such as Newslaundry are few and far between, I'm curious to understand, where do you get your daily dose of sane, balanced business and political news? Recently, Abhinandan referred to the core report, which is quite useful. Can you all share other such daily, weekly content avenues? Thank you and keep up the great work. So let's start with, what's your news consumption like to keep it balanced? Jayashree, maybe our audience can...
I read 3 newspapers. I read Times of India, The Hindu and the New Indian Express. I think between all 3 of them, you get a fairly wide range, especially of city coverage, which I think is really important. Online, I consume Navarro Media. I read Jacobin. I read New Line Magazine. I read Owen Jones. I feel like I read very leftist sort of outlets because the sort of more conservative side of it comes to me anyway, whether I ask for it or not. So I do seek out news sources that I align with politically. So yeah.
Raman sir?
Indian, there are 6 to 7 newspapers. Hindustan Times, Times of India, Indian Express, Hindu, then Business Standard, Mint, Economic Times. So I, of course, I will not be able to read from cover to cover, but I think I consume most of the relevant, articles in 2 hours to 2.5 hours of these 7. Then in office, whatever I am interested in, say BBC, CNN, or foreign publishing. So that also I read when it comes to news. In terms of podcasts, mostly I'm listening to health podcast.
I see.
So
Right. So for health news, you can tap into Raman sir.
Health, yes.
So I read 3 newspapers. Like one I opened up, I just scrolled. One, of course, Indian Express, Hindu, and then Bhaskar for Hindi side news, and Gorkha Patra, which is for Nepal. And you get to learn a bit of Nepali language. And I'm recently trying to inculcate Economic Times and Wall Street Journal because Raman sir has assigned me the economic things to read that. And popular science.
Right. So, I mean, I have 2 newspapers that I read every day, which is Times of India and Indian Express, but not cover to cover. Op-ed, I see who's written what. Like, I will not read a Ram Madhav op-ed. I will not read today's Narendra Modi op-ed. Raman sir will tell me about it in brief. But I, on matters of foreign policy, I'll always read what Suhasini recommends. So Twitter is a huge tool for me. So, I will not name all reporters because I may leave a few out, but a few reporters that I follow, whenever they recommend something, I read that. For international news, every night before I go to sleep, I listen to the Global News podcast of BBC World. I listen to every episode of NPR, Planet Money. I listen to all the Economist podcasts. And I consume a lot of media from Scroll, News Minute, here and there, again, based on what is recommended. I read many links that Nitin also actually suggests on Twitter sometimes. So I go by what people who I, think know what they're talking about recommend.
Yeah, that's actually exactly what I do, because sometimes I feel like I'm not online enough that I'm not checking Twitter all the time. So I'll go to the timeline of someone whom I trust and I'll read everything they've RT'd, and then I feel quite up to date.
So I hope that was useful. By the way, just yesterday, everyone, panel also, I'll tell you, I was discussing with Chitranshu and Vignesh that we should actually have a paid service where we recommend a reading list for subscribers who want like a balanced view of things. That what do we suggest? So I was like...
Remember, we did this briefly. We used to put up a piece every Sunday called NL Recommends, where we would recommend one thing to read or whatever from... It was actually really nice.
Yeah, so we're figuring out we should actually start that again. We should do it in a way. Then Aarti says, And this Arthi, I'm sure, is from the south because it's not Arti, it's Arthi. Hi, NL team. I want to share this super informative podcast discussion with you, making sense of sovereign debt. How colonialism continues to very much exist and is crippling the global south through the debt crisis, even eroding the Western economies. I request everyone listening to also please support debtjustice.org.uk in their fight back. The link to the Arti's recommended podcast is in the show notes below, so you can check it out. And then Sushmita says, hello people, love the podcast. It's the first thing I do when the weekend begins. But I was miffed about Abhinandan's tirade against older texts because they are supposedly irrelevant. Older texts? You would be surprised how much these classics, still hold true even when they're 200 years old. They are classics for a reason. Contemporary scholars are only building on the work that has been done by Adam Smith or Marx. There is merit in citing them because they have us frames to think with. I'm guessing you mean that they help us frame things in the appropriate way.
Or they've given us frames to think
Okay,
with.
God. I'm not saying that everyone has to read them, but you also don't need to dismiss them. There is so much anti-intellectualism in this world, from Modi, who says Harvard nahi hard work, to universities moving towards skilling as their primary goal. I don't think NL needs to add to that. Point taken, Sushmita.
What did you try it against?
Basically, what I said was, we were having a chat. Actually, it was a very innocuous statement by Anand, where he quoted Adam Smith talking about certain. My point, actually, I wasn't saying that they are of no use. My point was that we should not make economic forecasts or assumptions of consumer behavior based on what Marx or Adam Smith said.
Okay.
Because now we have so much data that I'm not saying in any case you cannot make accurate economic forecasts. It is the most unscientific science. But I would rather say, okay, what has happened in these economies when this happened, rather than what Adam Smith said would happen.
Yeah.
And their approach was ideological approach towards consumption.
Yeah.
It wasn't based on data.
Although Anand was not using it as a informed, he was just using it as a rhetoric, a slogan.
Cool.
But
Fair
I think
enough.
I just overreacted.
Because I read also a lot of
Understood,
ancient
Sushmita.
texts.
So I will let Jayashree to go from here.
So this is Anish's shortened version of the 9 emails he sent us. He's asked that we read those 9 emails. Whatever. So he says, hi team, I've been a Newslaundry supporter since its inception. Watching Clothesline, Can You Take It? Abhinandan's interviews during my DU days was a delight. His interviewing style, that is letting people talk themselves into trouble, was masterful. Manisha and Atul have beautifully filled the clothesline-shaped hole in my heart. I finally started paying in 2020, not just because I could afford to, but because I couldn't imagine life without Newslaundry. Your Hawa Ka Hak project resonated deeply. As a chemistry researcher, I constantly think about solutions to air pollution. I'd love to help, research, compiling data, writing explainers. Rooting for you always. I hope this letter echoes the sentiments of many silent supporters like me. That is really sweet.
Thank you so much, Anish. That is so sweet of you. But we will read all your mails individually also later.
And he can send us his research, anything about air pollution.
Anish, our team that is doing this will get in touch with you because we have actually a pool of people, area experts who we are tapping into for various aspects of this, because there's a year-long campaign. You will hear from us soon, so you can get involved. Thank you.
Sharat says, hi, as part of a climate action PAN, can this contest be conducted? What is the most polluted place in India? It can be a competition between places near thermal power plants or cities, and places will be awarded like a prize and create a buzz on the Newslaundry handle. Like Delhi defeated Lucknow, Hyderabad defeated Jaipur, just like a T20 match. This is a fun idea.
Great idea, Sarat. I think we should do this.
We should do this.
The wall of shame.
Next email is from Izaz, who says, hi, I've been listening to your news and podcast for a very long time. I recently bought your subscription too. Is it necessary to do a Shawshank Redemption kind of thing and send multiple emails so that you may notice it? Or do you censor some of the emails on purpose? I understand there may be some security or political and other issues associated with some of the email's contents, but isn't it better to at least give a reply on the mail itself, if not on the podcast? Also, what is Anand's view on the fax machine controversy during application process? Manisha, I love your fieldwork. Thank you.
So, Ijaz, we don't censor any mails. I mean, if you've sent before and they haven't come, maybe they'll end up in spam. But what we don't read is if someone has made an allegation that XYZ has taken money and beat up XYZ.
Yeah.
Journalistically, we cannot read that bit out unless we can corroborate it journalistically. So some of the mails we get, there are specific allegations. We just leave that chunk out. Under that specific allegation can be backed by demonstrable proof, which is a journalistic, basically, basic ethos. But otherwise, we don't censor any emails.
And also that happens quite rarely. I mean, it's rare for
very
someone
rare.
to send us stuff
I
like
know.
that. So
You just do write again. Did any of your emails not find their way here? Because if they did, then they went elsewhere. Because we don't censor.
Next email is Indu, who says, listening to you discuss Charlie Hebdo got me writing. In my opinion, the Western support for Charlie Hebdo is probably due to more acceptance of Charlie Hebdo's views, rather than French veneration for secularism. The 2008 firing of Sign for an supposedly anti-Semitic article by Charlie Hebdo does not exactly scream equal opportunity offenders. Charlie Hebdo has lampooned Judaism, but can they ridicule Judaism for what Israel does in the Middle East? Instead, repeated lampooning of Muslims as barbaric, violent zealots in a society with African Muslims and Arab immigrants facing systemic discrimination is not exactly punching up. Charlie Hebdo's right to offend is and must be preserved, but it doesn't deserve a pedestal of lofty ideals. Secularism is deeply entrenched in the French psyche, and so are ideas of colonization civilizing the uncivilized. The extermination campaign in Gaza, with state and media support for over a year, has removed the veneer of free speech in the free world. It's reminded us some are more egalite than others.
Good.
I
point,
agree
Hindu.
entirely with this.
I can't. I'm sure Manisha would have kind of disagreed, but I agree.
Too bad, Manisha.
You
This is
ain't
what happens
here.
when you miss.
Yeah.
The French are very militant about it. You cannot be militant in imposing any value.
Right.
Tanya has said,
Tanya has
"Hi and
breached the word count, so we will leave hers for when we are doing the consolidated meal. Rule is rule.
Yes.
Rule is rule. Done.
165, Tanya. So your mail will be read, but when we do the consolidated mails later.
Cool. Okay, so then next is Rohan. Yeah. So Rohan says, I was intrigued by what Mr. Kirpal said in the Hafta Extra episode regarding how watching and reading news all the time is draining. And I don't intend to use the term loosely, depressing. As journalists, I'm assuming all of you must be reading a lot of news. I want to know what you do to stay positive and hopeful. I have 4 subscriptions currently, Newslaundry, TNM, NYT, and Le Monde. I spend a fair bit of time every week reading the news. I love consuming it, but I also relate a lot to what Mr. Kirpal said. It's truly so depressing. What do all of you do to take a break?
What do you do, Jayashree? You want to answer first?
I read a lot. I mean, I was always a reader. Then I stopped being a reader for a long time because I started watching too many shows. And then I somehow wandered my way back into it like 7 years ago. And it helps my mind shut down. And like I read a lot of violent stuff also, but it's just...
That's how
that
she
space
deals.
for
So
me.
you know whichever side of the street you see Jayashree walking, you know you got to cross. And go
Or
through that.
but if there is a murder, I think I can solve it. I've read enough about it.
Okay, great.
So-
Raman, how do you remain de-stressed consuming so much news?
I just need to step out of Delhi
And you're fine.
and do not read at all.
Hmm.
Do not read at all. Yes, listening, podcast.
And that's also news then. Oh, health. You listen to health.
Mostly health podcasts, which is pure science.
Mm.
Pure science. I mean, these guys are from Stanford, Harvard, MIT, with 50 years of experience.
You don't listen to Swami Balkishan's...
No.
He's giving us Gyan on radio every day.
No.
Sir,
That's the news though.
No,
sorry,
no.
sir's health.
No,
if he's not listening to Ramdev and Balkishan, how will he run as fast as a horse?
Then he is not in.
Sorry, sir.
So they have 50 years of experience in, and mostly, I mean, they are practicing doctors as well as they are into R&D. So fascinating. I mean, and they are discussing, articles. I sometimes read those articles also, which have published in, very prestigious journals like Nature. So I do that. But yes, I don't want to be near the newspapers.
Right.
And I don't want to be near
Political
the
news.
TV news at
That
all.
I've stopped watching. How about you, Shardul? What do you do? Do you consume that much news? Because you do. Okay, you do.
I was a news junkie, which is why I came here. But the point is that I used to do a lot of things like gaming, which but I have stopped all of it because I felt like it's becoming too consumerist. Paisa fenk, tamasha dekh type. So I abandoned projects earlier. So I am trying to learn a new language and reading economics. And have again picked up flute because I abandoned it.
Oh,
learning.
nice.
So yeah, this is my third instrument. I know two already. So yeah, and like I bought this iPad to practice and writing poetry. So these are
nice.
abandoned projects which are always in limbo. Writing poetry, learning music, and
I play football. I go to the gym. I do exercises, but not yoga type exercises that completely destroy your body. So that is when you can't think of anything other than
Yes.
your lungs burning. So the nature of my exercises are intense, and that really relaxes me. Right.
Right. Next email is from Manan, who says, I just saw the extra episode and people criticize Manisha for anti-colonialist views. I absolutely support her on this with a slight change. White countries can be divided into those who benefited from colonization and those who were the victims, like Ireland. But I agree colonizers must be hated against for the simple reason that they don't see their mistake. They don't teach their new generations about those mistakes. Case in point, you talk to any German about World War II or related stuff, their face will show shame. But no Brit ever acknowledges the kind of devastation their ancestors brought about on more than half of the world population. We have the same problem in India when upper castes do the same thing when it comes to casteism.
That's a very good observation by Manan. I agree with Manan.
who
Yeah.
was criticizing Manisha about this? Fuck.
Me.
I hate Safedi ki chamkar.
Oh dear, you're also racist.
Yes.
Okay then.
There's no such thing as anti-racism. Sorry. Next email is from Vakula, who says, Hi team, in reference to episode 525, where the Bickerton Row was discussed, I'm attaching a judgment by Justice G.R. Swaminathan of the Madras High Court that Abhinandan was talking about. I think I was talking about it. It was held therein that the very filing of the impugned FIR against the cartoonist was absurd and an abuse of legal process. It's a very interesting read. I can only hope Jayashree's case comes before him. Rachita's case?
I think. Okay.
We were
I think
discussing-
he means the sanitary panel case will come before the same judge. Would be
exactly.
great.
Also, but in the meantime, that Tamil magazine's website has been blocked again, right?
No, it's stayed blocked now it's been what, from the 15th? It's been 13 days.
Vikatan.
Victim.
Yeah.
Viktan, right.
Shivam says hi on the appointment of Rekha Gupta, Mohan Yadav, Bhajanlal, Naib Saini and the like. It's good on one hand, since it gives chances to non-politically aligned families. At the same time, given our dear leader's image, it raises the question on whether it's done to centralize power at the top. These guys don't have a following to be able to take a stand and go against party directives, whereas previous leaders like Shivraj and Vasundhara were leaders in themselves who are capable of demanding what the state needs. What do you guys think?
Oh,
I also-
you're right.
sorry.
He's
Yes,
right.
yes, of course.
It's
He's
exactly
right.
that.
Today,
Shivam,
the three bureaucrats, one has become the personal advisor to the CM, and the secretary of the CM. All three have been drawn from the central.
Yeah, Shivam, this is, I think, now
government.
pretty much acknowledged about Mr. Modi. He only puts people in chief minister position who don't have their own, voter base, because if rumor is to be believed, and I believe it, that his friction with the UP chief minister when he became kind of eroded his power, absolute power there a little bit. So he doesn't like strong leaders leading states.
Yeah. Shivam also says, I want to appreciate the Manosphere articles and related work by News Minute. I'm a few months short of turning 25. I see this culture everywhere. One dare not speak against it. Otherwise, you're a lefty, woke, and whatnot. Much appreciated.
Thanks, Shivam.
And finally, Sunil, who says, Dear Abhinandan ji, I am a regular subscriber of Newslaundry and News Minute. I watch Hafta and South Central regularly. I'm happy to see discussions without hidden strings and ads. I request you to kindly discuss the serious issue of Employees Provident Fund Organization not paying adequate pension to lakhs of retirees despite a Supreme Court judgment of November 2022. Till date, they've only cleared about 1% of the pending cases. This is 2.25 years after the Supreme Court judgment. Thank you. I wish more growth for independent ad-free news organizations like yours.
Thanks, Sunil. Actually, this is another audit we should do. This will be a long-term thing, Sunil, but we definitely will put it on our list of long-term project that we do, because this whole thing of, the Employee Provident Fund, you hear so many anecdotal cases of people defaulting on this. Let's just see what is the scale of the default on this. It may be significant.
Right. We'll do that.
On that note, let's get our recommendation for the week, but I'm going to request my producer to flash this QR code once again to contribute to a new NL Sena project on police excesses. Let's do an audit of the worst performing states and see where it takes us. Yes, let's get the recommendations. Jayashree, you want to go first?
Yeah, my I have 3 recommendations. The first is an essay in the New Yorker. It is written by this journalist who attended the trial of the men who raped Giselle Pellicotte in France. So it's, generally she talks about how, the wives of the accused, they were asked about their husband's sexuality. They were asked to explain why they think he looked for a relationship outside. So even in this sort of trial that has been covered like no other, the kind of questions these women were asked. Also, she talks about the chat room that this man used that Giselle Pellicotte's husband used to get in touch with all the men who would eventually rape her. So the judges called it a dating site, but it's a series of anonymous chat rooms devoted to specific topics. So she writes about the kind of man who would be in those chat rooms, why this case turned out the way it did. It's a very interesting essay. It's called The Chat Room Behind the Pellicotte Rape Trial. My second recommendation is a book. I don't know if I've recommended Tana French before, but I absolutely love her. It's very gritty Irish murder, police, procedural, crime fiction sort of books. This book is a bit of an outlier. It's also like an intimate portrait of a family, a house, and a crime. It's called The Witch Elm, and I loved it. And I'm recommending a show. It's a 5-part miniseries on Geo Hotstar. I will say Geo Hotstar is absolute shit. They have ruined Hotstar entirely.
Yes.
I didn't even think that was possible, but what to do? So in the 1980s, there was this a Pan Am flight crashed. It killed 259 passengers and crew, and it crashed in this tiny isolated place in Scotland called Lockerbie. And it became this really big thing. Like there was a big investigation, what happened, and then they arrested, I think, a couple of Libyan people saying that they had masterminded the entire thing. Fascinatingly, the father of one of the victims, he followed through with this case his entire life. He's still alive, to bring justice to his daughter who was killed. He also made sure to campaign for one of the men who was arrested, saying that he was innocent and he needs to be let go. So it's a very interesting story. It's also very political. The miniseries is called Lockerbie, A Search for Truth. It also stars Colin Firth. So if that is exciting to you, please watch it.
All right. Raman sir?
I have 2 recommendations. One is Shubhra Gupta in Indian Express. This Sunday, their Sunday magazine, she wrote an article called At Home in Her World, which is the profile of a very good actress, in fact, Kani Kusruti. She has acted in a few movies, a couple of movies I've seen. And I'm really impressed. After Smita Patil and Shbana, this woman has real depths. So she has written it so beautifully. Shubhra goes to her place in Goa, and she profiles her. So very worth reading.
Right.
And second is just for a food for thought. So I think we should read Prime Minister Narendra Modi's article, which I'm sure must have published in all the newspapers and vernacular or English everywhere, because the kind of reach that our Prime Minister has. So it must have got published. And the food for thought is he says that we, with this Mahakumbh, where more than 60 crore people or 70 crore people who had gone to Mahakumbh, we have entered into a new era. So if you think that by invoking past, we have entered a new era. So it's just a food for thought. Prime Minister...
Although the Railway Minister, Ashwini Vaishnav, I think yesterday gave a press conference, that he said that they ran special trains for the Kumbh for a month, where about 4.6 crore people traveled on those trains. So let's say double those amount traveled on other normal trains. We'll take it to 4 3s are 12 crore. If 55 or 60 crore people landed up, the others walked, went by bus. Because that's a lot of people who have not taken trains. And if those many people can afford to fly in our country or drive, I don't know. The numbers don't add up to me.
Yeah, but also every single time they tell us the number of people, it sort of goes up by 5 crores.
That is like
casually.
Trump.
Yeah.
Yes, your recommendations?
So I was thinking about giving a serious one, and then Gene Hackman died this week. So I was thinking about another movie. But we spoke about WAPO and C'est La Vie. So the first recommendation is, there was a time when Washington Post used to do work. It's, in my opinion, the second best journalistic movie of all time, which is Robert Redford and I forget the name of the other guy.
Dustin Hoffman.
Dustin Hoffman, yes. All the President's Men,
Oh.
about Watergate break-in and its reportage. The second one is I'm reading about economics, so I'm finding new things. So this is a rehash from last week's Charcha, if anybody has an objection. The book's name is The Economic Growth Engine, How Energy and Work Drive Material Prosperity. It's by Robert U. Ayers and Benjamin Warr. And it sort of links how the dependency on fossil fuels has driven, and now the society has become addicted to it. You cannot be sure of the same efficiency, which was the story of past 2 centuries. It's a very good book. The third one is again a rehash, but like I missed the Valentine Day thing. So it's a 1976 small novel from Ela Chandra Joshi, Kavi Ki Preyasi. It's a very beautiful thing, and it's the push and pull of. She writes beautifully, like she's a very famous one. But this book is a fictitious one, but the push and pull of internal emotions when you are in relationships and dealing with other people. It's very good book. Please read it.
So I have 3 recommendations with the markets crashing and what's happening. It's a 25-minute podcast, The Rise and Fall of Long-Term Capital Management. It's one of the most successful funds that gave insane returns until it completely went bankrupt and almost sank the entire US economy. It's good to revisit such that success is short-lived. And as I don't know whose quote this is, but markets can remain irrational longer than you can remain solvent.
Yes.
The second is a podcast which I found fascinating, which is BBC Global Story, The Bolsonaro, Is It All Over for Trump of the Tropics? It shows the contrast of how US dealt with Trump and how Brazil has dealt with Bolsonaro, and I wonder, why the reason is. And finally, next week, I highly recommend you adjust your sleeping schedule, because on the 5th of March, Real Madrid plays Atletico Madrid, and on 6th of March, Bayern plays Leverkusen. So those are 2 matches I'm going to readjust my sleeping pattern next week.
Starting now.
I think we should shut the office. I'm just saying.
Yes.
Group
For
of
all of us
16
to
starts
enjoy.
from 5th of March.
I
group of
second that
16.
motion.
So on that note, as promised, we shall leave you with Old MacDonald Had a Farm in Sanskrit by Jayashree. Take it away.
We will absolutely not. I will never return to this show again. Goodbye.
Okay, then we'll leave you with a Tamil song which I loved from a film that I loved even more, Mandela. Have a fantastic weekend. Pay to keep news free. Thank you, Raman sir. Thank you, Shardool. Thank you, Jayashree. Thank you, Naresh, our wonderful sound recordist. Thank you, Priyani, a wonderful producer. And our younger junior producer, Ashish, who seems to have vanished. Thank him too. And thank you all for supporting Newslaundry. Please keep your support coming in. Let's make us bigger, better, and pay to keep news free and show the billionaires we don't need them to run news. You guys run your wedding tamashas. We'll run news.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Journalism at Newslaundry is powered by the public, because when the public pays, the public is served. Visit newslaundry.com/subscription and pick a payment plan of your choice. Pay to keep news free and independent. Your future, and indeed the future of democracy, depends on it.